Good afternoon. Welcome to CAMS Experience Series number 1. Today, we will discuss on after-sales service, an opportunity for lifetime engagement with our customers. In today's competitive marketplace, businesses are increasingly recognizing that the customer journey does not end once a sale is made. Instead, after-sales service has become a critical aspect of the customer experience, offering businesses an opportunity to forge long-term relationship and drive customer loyalty. The concept of lifetime engagement with the customer is no longer just a nice-to-have thing, but a crucial part of sustaining business success. So today, we will discuss this topic with our subject matter expert, Ulrika Lindberg, who has joined us from Sweden, to understand how after-sales service is a powerful opportunity for building lifetime engagement with customers. Ulrika is a global leader with more than 25 years of experience in customer management and has a strong passion for customer service and aftermarket. She brings with her senior leadership experience with global companies like Unilever, Tetra Pak, and more recently as Executive Vice President, Global Markets and Service at Marel, a global leader in food processing solutions. Ulrika is an inspirational leader with a focus on people management, customer experience management, and leading change, as well as driving growth. So Ulrika is also a member of advisory board of CAMS Consulting. So good afternoon, Ulrika. Welcome to this series.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for joining. So I have the first question for you, Ulrika. See, traditionally, industrial equipment manufacturers offer after-sales service when their customer faces trouble in terms of a machine failure or for spares. Do you see any change in this aspect wherein manufacturers are turning more proactive rather than be reactive?
Very much so, I would say. But I would also say that it varies slightly between different industries and also actually between different regions. I've been working with service, as you mentioned, for quite a long time. I'm proud to say that I've been on a journey with some of the companies that I've worked for that have more a valuable contribution to the overall business. And the success factor in doing so, I believe, is very much that you turn it in from being reactive to being more proactive, working with your customers. But there are differences. There are still regions where they have a tendency to run the equipment to failure. There are some industries that don't require so much service. So there are differences between both regions and industries here. So it's important as well to really understand both the customer side and your own offering.
Okay, that's a good perspective. What is happening, the current trend shows that many global players are focusing on building this after-sales service as a line of business. How does that impact in the way they connect with the customers? What do you think so?
Well, I think that there is not one size fits all for service. And I think it's very, very important to set up the right structure for whichever company wants to focus more on service. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it is very much that you need to understand your customers' operation to understand what needs they have. Service can, and in my opinion, should be very profitable. So you should set up service as a business, but maybe for some cases, it makes sense to set it up as a separate line of business. But I have also seen quite a few times where that is not the best scenario. So I think it depends a little bit on, for me, for example, if the equipment is sold to one customer and it's used by another customer, then it's quite safe to run it as a separate business. But if you have a partnership with your customer and you want that seamless partnership between the equipment and service, then I think it is actually quite important to not run it as a separate business. All of that said, as I mentioned, it can and should be quite profitable. So I think it's extremely important that service is managed as a business, even if it is an integral part of the overall company. And I think that is so important, that you set the right KPIs, that you have the right people to manage your service, because it is different than maybe running an equipment sales only. And I think that is what I think is very important, is to make sure that you find the right setup, but also find the right KPIs that is needed for your business.
Excellent. I think that's another way of looking at it. But if you want to set up a business line after sales, what will be the key elements for building a robust after sales service business line?
I think that, I try to make some things simple, and that's also important, I think, when you work in service, to make it simple so that people understand what service is. And for me, there are four sort of big pieces of service that you need to look at. One is spare parts. If your equipment requires spare parts, that is extremely important. And I think we could almost have a session like this on spare parts alone. It is important that you have not only that you have the right KPIs, but that you need to understand that spare parts is different than equipment manufacturing. So you really need to know that sourcing is different, the way you run the operation is different, etc. So spare parts is one critical element of most industrial company service offerings. So that is one strong key element. The second one is, I call it the service portfolio, having a clear offering to your customers so that the customers know what it is you can provide for them. That can be both the sort of the preventive side, those that you need to do, as a service contract, or the regular service that you need to do with your equipment. But I also think it needs to be the reactive side, packaged in a clear way. What can I, as a customer, what kind of services can I get from you as a supplier? That to me is the service portfolio, and packaging that into services. The services needs to be delivered. They can be delivered by a service engineer on site, or it can also, in some cases, make more sense to bring the equipment into your operation. In that sense, I would call it more a service center. So I think the whole service delivery is the third element of service. And that is also, very important that you set that up for service. If you have service engineers, you need to have clear guidelines for health and safety. You need to make sure that, they have clear competence so that they know what they're supposed to do on site. And if you take the equipment into your facility, it is, of course, also clear, that needs to be separate from your other equipment side of manufacturing. The fourth pillar then being technical support and help desk. This is very often the phone call the people that answer the phone call from the customer when they have issues. But it can also be a support to customers just in normal operations. So in my opinion, those are the four. It's spare parts, it's the service offering, it is the service delivery, and then the technical support and help desk.
Okay, so all those four elements are required to make it a really robust after sales?
I think so. And they don't need to be equally big, just to be clear. I mean, they could be, like if you don't have so much spare parts, don't make it big. If you don't have a lot of service engineers, don't make it big. But they are four elements to be looked at, in my opinion.
Okay. So this delivering the service you mentioned is very resource intensive. So how does a company be competitive during this service delivery? Do you think all these new technologies, or can technology be used to make the entire service delivery cycle more effective for the customer?
I will say, I think there are two questions in this. So if we start with the first one, how to be more competitive. And I think, again, you need to look at your own equipment. Is the equipment simple to do service on, or is it more complex to do service on? If it's simple, it can still make sense that you have that offering in-house. But then I think you need to have, a lot of customers in a closed geography, so that you can get an effective way of using your service engineers. If it is more complex to do service on your equipment, then you need to offer potentially, even traveling far or flying your service engineers to customers in a wider area. But then you need to make sure that the customers are willing to pay for that service. If not, I think service partners are, it is a good way of looking at it. So I think it depends a little bit on to what extent you have a lot of customers in a closed geography, and also then how complex is it to actually provide the service to your equipment. But absolutely, is technology coming to us, and we should use that as much as possible. I think both artificial intelligence, but also data management. From the equipment itself, it could be connected, with connectivity. You could potentially connect your equipment and have it online, but not all customers will, allow that. So I've also worked in cases where we have then gone, every time there is a service engineer on site, you download the data from the equipment. So you still get the data, maybe not real life or live data, but you get the data afterwards, so that you can actually do some data mining and learn from how is the equipment used, and make sure that you then, build your service offering stronger and stronger. But if you look at technology, it doesn't have to be complex either. In one of the companies, we developed helmets for our service engineers. And the helmets had cameras, and the cameras could then be connected to our help desk. So that the service engineers, they were on site, but they maybe didn't know what to do with the equipment, or they got stuck or something. And then they could actually connect back to our help desk, and the help desk would help them by these live cameras and showing them and telling them what to do with the equipment. So there are many ways of using technology, and I think don't be afraid to explore that, because it is, it's definitely here to stay, and it's going to be more and more important.
Correct. And more technology will make it easier to deliver the service.
For sure.
Yeah. So there is also a lot of talk about productification of service these days. So how important is this, and what is really this productification, and how to achieve that?
I wouldn't say that it's a sensitive question, but I will say that, this is, of course, what I have spent most of my career doing. So this is really, for me, it's critical that you have a strong service portfolio and then also service offering. And I think, maybe just to make it super simple, and I know that this has been used a lot, but if we think back, and I'm old enough to say that, in the beginning when we had cars, we would take them to a garage and leave it there when it didn't work. And then, you didn't quite know what they were going to do with it, and you didn't know how much it was going to cost. But that's not the case today. Today, cars are coming with very clear service contracts. You know exactly when the car is going in for service. And if you don't do it, there is a yellow light telling you that make sure you take it to service. And this, to me, is service portfolio. This is productification of the service offering. And if you buy then industrial equipment, you want the same, in my opinion. You're running a large operation. You want to know how much money and how long will it take to do this service on my equipment. And that's why I think it's so important for companies that are providing service to productify, to clarify to customers what it is they're going to do when they go on site, and how long will it take, and how much is it going to cost. And of course, there might deviate sometimes from that, but I think it's very important that you have that mindset that it should be easier for the customer to call you and ask you for, a regular service on the equipment, whether it's being a monthly or a yearly. That's something that, of course, depends on the equipment. But I think it is very important to have those service offerings clearly defined with a clear value proposition. Yeah.
Okay. So, when you provide service, how do we measure how effective is it? Is there a way one can measure the effectiveness of the service that is being delivered? And are there proven ways to measure the customer satisfaction?
I think that there are two sets of, if we leave customer satisfaction for a second, because I think that's something that you do once the service is provided and after the service. But there is a lot of things that you can do as a company to make sure that you have leading indicators. And that is what I talked about earlier, those 4 pillars. If you set up the right KPIs for each and one of them, that will help you make sure that you reach customer satisfaction in the end. For spare parts, it is the order fulfillment for spare parts and right time delivery at the customer. When it comes to the help desk, it could be response time. How long does it take for us to actually respond to a customer? Yeah. It is for the service engineers, it can be, first time fix. How many time do we actually solve the issue on our first call for a service engineer, and how often do they need to come back? All of these KPIs are, very specific to service, but it means that you're measuring service as a business, but you're also measuring your operation in a good way. But then I think there is the customer satisfaction side. And here I think that, again, there are two sides. You could do it very often and do it online. You can send it to customers after you've had a service engineer or after a spare part has been delivered, for example. That will give you that, very quick and very, sometimes you get a feeling for what the customer is, how happy they are. But I think we also need to look at ourselves, when we get these questionnaires, we don't spend so much time thinking about it. It's a very immediate answer. Could give you the wrong signals if you're not careful. I think that should be complemented with face-to-face interviews, where you do some more in-depth discussion with your customer to really try to understand, are they happy with your offering? And, is there something that you want to change? So I think you need to set up the right KPIs for each and one of your the 4 pieces that we talked about earlier. And I think you should do customer satisfaction, but look at the method you're using.
Okay. And do you believe that a strong service organization, if you can build, that will build in long-term relationship with customers, and actually it can lead to repeat business for the company?
I don't only believe that, I know that. I can just say that it absolutely is this the case. If you do this well, not only with your service business grow, but if you reach that partnership and that having that balance where you are offering what the customer needs, you will reach satisfied customers, which eventually will lead then to more business, and it will lead to that strong relationship that you potentially want, and having a good brand name linked to a strong service offering. And This is, of course, also why I have worked with a lot of people over the years. And many that I know of, and me included, we stay in service because once you've been successful in service, it's very rewarding to work in service. And therefore, I will say that that's also proven sort of success rate for service, that if you reach, a good balance between you and the customers and you feel that you add value and deliver results, then that is a win-win situation.
Right. Perfect. So thank you, Ulrika, for taking time to share your experience on this subject. I'm sure many would take your tips and the pointers that you just shared and make their customer engagement strategy more effective. So thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you again.